Hey there, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Get Up and Go Challenge, preliminary leading up to our next challenge, day 8. This is one of my favorite sayings and one of my favorite days, and one of the lessons I learned, probably one of my younger first lessons I learned as a child. And it is one of my favorites. Today's and tomorrow's are things that I learned from my dad, mostly from my dad. I'm sure my mom chimed in too, but these are things I distinctly remember learning from my dad growing up. I grew up with 3 sisters and has little girls. I'm sure this lesson came about, and I don't remember exactly when it was because that's how little I was, but I do remember hearing over and over again throughout my life and throughout my childhood, actually my adult life. My dad just passed away about 5 years ago now, and this expression, life isn't fair. Life isn't fair, Sherry. They used to call me Sherry. Life isn't fair to one of my other sisters. Life isn't fair to my mom. Life isn't fair to other people. This is one of those mantras that my dad would teach us. And he grew up in a very, very poor family, and worked very, very hard his entire life to create a wonderful life for my sisters, my mom, and myself. And he would always say when things would happen, because things always happen, right? Things happen in our lives that we don't always necessarily agree with or feel good about. And he would remind us that life isn't fair. Like I said, I'm sure one of my sisters and I were probably originally arguing over toys or a doll or a game or something, and would go whining to my dad, as if any of us would ever go whining or complaining to my dad. We learned early on that didn't really work with my dad either. He would just tell us, hey, life isn't fair, so you might not think it's fair, but it happens, so now what are you going to do? And he taught us to be solution focused. He taught us to be problem solvers, not problem complainers or problem whiners or focusing on the problem. And I totally appreciate him for that, because it makes problem solving come more naturally for me than it does for a lot of people. Instead of draining and my energy and spending energy focusing on the problem, I go to the solution, and I found that helped me. Now, life isn't fair. I love this idiom for so many reasons. Number one, it reminds me that how we experience everything is different for each and every one of us. Who is to decide what is fair or not fair? Our politicians would have us believe that it's up to them. It's up to them to decide what is fair for the people of the fine United States. I'm going to get me going down that road, because I think we need to think for ourselves. I think we covered that in a couple of lessons ago. A couple days ago, we talked about the lesson learned and the importance of using our incredible brains to create and figure out what is right for us, not letting or waiting for somebody to tell us what is right for us, because guess what? They don't know. What's going on in our country right now is a prime example of that. It's a prime example of the manipulation that goes on in order for some people's agendas and egos to overpower other people's, and to try to convince us with fear and conniving that we are not intelligent enough to make our own decisions, so they have to decide for us. They have to decide what's fair for each and every one of us. Now, how's it been working out for us? Not so good, I don't think. That's, again, just my opinion. Now, fair does not equal equal. Equal does not equal fair. We hear this argument a lot from leaders, usually leaders in organizations, or who are getting a much bigger share of something, resources, usually money and other type resources or privileges, than they're telling the rest of us. And this works in corporations, it works in unions, it works in any big organization, it works this way in politics and the world. A certain group of people is determining what is fair for all of the rest of us, for all the rest of the people, right? Well, they're not living by the same standards and rules that we are. So is that fair? Yeah, not really. Whether we believe it's fair or not is up to each of us to decide. And what is fair? What is fair to me and what is fair to you are probably totally different things, right? Because we've got different experiences. And neither is right or wrong. It's like defining beautiful or ugly. What's ugly to me might be beautiful to you. What's beautiful to you, I might think, oh, not so much. So we each get to interpret that ourselves. But life is not fair, and primarily because fair has a different opinion and a different definition from the beholder. Whoever is using the word means something different by it. Our political leaders say, well, this is fair for all of you people, but then they have a different program for themselves. Think of health insurance, for example. The leaders of our country have their own health insurance program. They have their own set of rules in terms of loans and money and how things work for them and their children than the rest of us have to experience. So who is it that should decide what fair is? And life isn't fair. Life is inherently what you create out of it, what you choose, the choices and the decisions and the opportunities you choose to follow up on or not follow up on. Is that fair? It doesn't always feel like it, especially when things go wrong and things go bad in our lives. It doesn't feel like life is fair because it's not. How does life decide who gets cancer and dies young? How does life decide who gets in a car crash and is crippled for the rest of their life? How does life decide what happens to us? Well, it doesn't. It does, but it doesn't. Everything that happens to us, as much as it's very painful in many situations and on many occasions, it happens for a reason. And we don't always understand the reason. I know lots of stuff's happened in my life that I don't initially understand the reason. And I fight against it and I'm upset and I'm like, oh, this just isn't fair. But gotten fired from jobs. Is that fair? I didn't think it was fair. Person that fired me thought it was fair. Then it was sometimes up to a third party to decide that, or in one instance anyway. But it's, and how does that work? Think of our entire court system. Is that fair? There is so much stuff that gets screwed up in our court system and in our legal system. Is that fair? And who's to decide? We have whole systems, whole judiciary branch of our government is supposed to decide what's fair, right? Jury of your peers and all that. Well, seeing how that works, that's mostly bogus and it doesn't work. And people can argue either way, but it definitely is not fair. Why do some people experience hardships and losses and get reimbursed by the government or third parties and other people don't? Why do some people win the lottery? It's not fair, right? Life is not fair. Universal principles, laws, rules, think of the IRS, they apply to everybody, whether we believe them or not, whether we know about them or not. I remember in corporate America learning lessons that you are held liably and responsible as the leader of an organization, whether for everything that all the people that reported to you do, whether you believe it or not. If you own your own business, I don't know if you know it or not, but you are legally responsible for everything that anyone in your organization does. So if you have a bad business partner, been there, done that, I was legally held accountable for the stuff that my bad business partner did. If you have an employee that breaks the law, say they commit a crime, you can still be held accountable because you should have known about that crime. Is that fair? No, life isn't fair. Is it fair when parents go to jail because their kids miss school or skip out on school? I mean, how do we know what's fair and what's not? Again, it's how we define it, each and every one of us. So this is one of my very favorite sayings and my very favorite understandings, because I wouldn't say, I guess it is a belief. I do believe life isn't fair, and the only way we make it fair is how we interact and choose to respond to things, and by taking a proactive approach to our individual lives and continually trying to make ourselves a better person and the world a better place. That's, again, my beliefs. But we get to each choose what is or isn't fair, and we can push against and fight against things that we don't believe in or we don't think are fair. But a lot of times, the more we push against something, the more of that we bring into our individual lives. So do we really want to do that? Maybe, maybe not. Again, fair, I've learned, and in my experience, I think why I like life isn't fair, this idiom, and to know that, is it gives me a better understanding of what I need to do about that, what I need to do about different circumstances and situations I find myself in. I know that I need to take a proactive role in the outcomes that I want to see in any situation, whether it's my personal relationships or my life at work or in my business life, or whether it's in any environment, right? I need to be proactive and be involved in choosing, number one, picking and choosing what I am going to participate in, picking and choosing where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do in order to make my life work for me. Because it's up to each and every one of us to make our life work for us. We talked about nobody's going to do it for us yesterday. Nobody's going to make your life work for you except you. Mainly because nobody else knows exactly how you want your life to work. Only you know that. So I would love to know your experience and thoughts on life isn't fair. I don't want us to get into a big tirade of all the things that we don't think are fair, because each of us have a whole list of a whole slew of those things that we think and we believe aren't fair. And then there's other things that, you know, work in our advantage, and so we of course think those things are fair. It's just human nature. But I would like to know, you know, have you found this to be true? You know, if all of us were making the same amount of money, would that make life fair? I don't think so. If everybody made $1 million, if we all looked the same, if we all felt the same, if we all dressed the same, would that be fair? Would that make life better? I think it'd make it pretty freaking boring. But again, if we all had the same education, drove the same car, I think there's been movies about that, and they were pretty boring. And there's always then some rebel that comes in and breaks it all up because it's too vanilla. Nobody likes all vanilla, although we do like vanilla. So that's it. That's our idiom, or not our idiom for today. I said that yesterday too. That's our life lesson learned for today. Life isn't fair. And here's the deal. You're better off spending your energy making your life work for you than trying to make life fair in your estimation for other people. It's like trying to get somebody to believe the same way you do with respect to politics or religion. Yep, you can do that, but is that the best use of your time and energy? Might be. For me personally, no. I'm not going to spend any energy fighting against life not being fair and trying to make life more fair for me and for other people. I'm going to spend my time and energy creating the life that feels awesome for me. All right, that's it. That's our lesson for today. I'll be with you tomorrow with another one of my favorite things I learned from my dad when I was a little girl, and that I continue to believe very strongly in today. Otherwise, August 1st, Saturday, this coming Saturday, we will be starting the next 30-day, 30 days, don't freak out. If you do something a little bit every day, it's amazing the progress that you can personally make and achieve and see in your life in as short as a month, right? People do 5-day challenges and 10-day challenges because they're marketing you some big thing at the end. I could do that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you right now, up front, I'm not going to do that. I'm not looking to build my customer base or to have to coach more people or to do anything. I am looking to help you during this crazy freaking time in our world. It's a crazy freaking time, at least in America, with COVID and the pandemic and kids going back to school and people trying to get back to work and businesses opening and closing and numbers going up and down and people protesting because we've got an election coming up and they want to make sure life is fair. Right? Okay, whatever. Is burning and torching our cities, is terrorizing law-abiding citizens fair? I am going to raise my hand right now and say, hell no, it's not fair, so knock it off. You know, there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things, and anybody that's a proponent of the rioting and the nonsense that's going on in our country right now, that's not fair. It's not fair to destroy the property of other people. And guess what? The federal government is all of us. So we're destroying ourselves. It kind of feels like cannibalism. Anyway, August 1st through 31st, right here, Get Up and Go Challenge page. We're going to make sure that I guarantee you will be better off by going through the challenge. I committed to keeping it under 10 minutes a day for the lesson that we're going to do, and then you'll have to do an action item. And maybe the action item will take you 2 to 10 minutes. So 20 minutes is your life, moving your life ahead in the direction you want it to go. Is that worth 20 minutes a day? Is that worth 10 minutes a day? If it isn't, please don't join me. But if it is, right here, 11 a.m., August 1st through 31st, we're going to chat about something that can move your life ahead faster than you ever imagined possible. Go ahead, make it an awesome day, and I'll be with you tomorrow with another one of my favorite lessons learned.